Hello my dear subscribers, and welcome to this new video where today we're going to talk about light bulbs. So here I have the incandescent bulb, a compact fluorescent, or otherwise known as CFL, and here I have an LED bulb. Okay, so first of all we have the incandescent bulb. Now it's a very simple light bulb. It has two terminals on the bottom which receive power. Depending on the country, you might have a screw terminal, and that's one of the terminals, and then the bottom is a foot terminal, that's the other terminal. And inside the light bulb, it's very simple also. It's filled with gas, like a noble gas, you'll see why later. And it has this tiny filament here. You can see it's moving around because this light bulb is broken, but it's a tungsten filament. And tungsten can get very hot at high temperatures, and these light bulbs get very hot because the tungsten filament is very thin, so it creates a high resistance for the power rating. So whenever, like, the voltage, like here in India it's like 220 to 250 volts or something. I think it's like, I'm not sure exactly, wait, I should say here. Yeah, 220 to 240 volts in India. So whenever it gets to that voltage, the resistance across it makes a lot of heat. And whenever this tungsten filament heats up, it actually starts to make light at a certain point. So the more it heats up, the more light it will make, until it burns out, of course. So to stop it from burning out very fast, they put a noble gas in here. And the reason it would burn out fast is because once this tungsten gets to a certain temperature, it starts to react with the air in the environment, especially the oxygen and even the nitrogen, and it makes the filament to burn out very fast. So if you put a noble gas in here, noble gases are very unreactive, so it won't react with the filament. And that makes the light bulbs last much longer and can get much brighter. Okay, so next of all we have a CFL bulb. These are also known as compact fluorescent bulbs. And so these incandescent bulbs, they use a lot of power. They use like 60 watts around. Some of them use 40 watts, some use 80 watts. But usually the middle is like 60 watts. But these, on the other hand, for the same amount of light, it can produce the same amount of light for much less power. And for example, this one here is 11 watts. And here, even on here, it says that it produces 55 lumens per watt, and this is 11 watts. So that means it produces around 605 lumens. And so that's not bad. It's only 11 watts. And it's much more complicated than the incandescent and works differently. So let's get started. So here we have this circuit, which is inside the CFL. This circuit is called a ballast circuit. It can make high voltage, like around 1000 volts. And with that voltage, these tubes are filled with mercury and argon. So whenever they are triggered with that high voltage, they start to produce ultraviolet light. And that ultraviolet light excites the phosphors that are coated on the inside of this tube, inside of these tubes, right? So whenever the ultraviolet light excites those phosphors, it creates light. And so if you keep powering it, it will keep creating more light. So that's how the CFLs create light in a basic way. Now, this circuit here is very useful actually for some future projects. I probably use it for a high voltage thing, for a static electricity generator. You have to change out the transformer to get even higher voltage than 1000 volts, and don't use this directly because this is not safe. So I'll have it in a future video on how to use these, possibly, and yeah. Okay, so the last type of light bulb we're going to look at today is the LED. Now the LED is by far the most efficient. This one is 5 watts and it produces 500 lumens. That means this produces 100 lumens per watt. This CFL only produces 55 lumens per watt. So I mean, that means that this is almost twice as efficient as this one. And they're much more efficient than these incandescent bulbs. So these ones are not very difficult, not very complex, I would say. It's pretty simple. They just have this LED circuit inside. This is just like a bunch of LEDs in an array, and I think the voltage is 36 to 48 volts or something. That's I think it was. And what this circuit does, this is inside the light bulb, is it converts the AC 220 to 240 volts into a steady DC flow. And so to do this, it uses a rectifier. I think this is only a single diode rectifier, because I only see one diode there, so I think it's a single diode rectifier. Unless that's a full bridge rectifier, I'm not sure. It could be a full bridge rectifier there. Yeah, I guess it's probably 2 diode or full bridge rectifier there. And so this will convert the 220 volts from the wall into steady, I think 36 volts DC, and that powers this LED array, which produce a lot of light for the power. So in conclusion, there's a lot of benefits from changing from incandescent bulbs to CFL bulbs, and from changing to incandescent bulbs to LED bulbs. And even if you have CFL bulbs, if you really want to save power, it's a good idea to change all your bulbs to LED bulbs. They might be more expensive, but they'll pay off over time. So here are the 3 types of light bulbs, and that's about it. Bye.